got 25 minutes. We got to go.
Hey!
Hey, yo!
Hey, everybody.
Happy hump day!
And I'm on my bouncy ball, so it actually looks like I'm bouncing.
Yeah, I got to get one of those. Guys, let's start getting those Patreon subscriptions up so I can get me a bouncy ball. Because I'm on
going towards Winston's exercise
shit.
ball fund.
I know, right? Like, drop it in the chat, guys, if you are interested in the longevity of my glutes and you want to have them thrive. This is the year for Winston's glutes to thrive.
Well, let's talk about that. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Happy Wednesday. We are Say That channel. And we love to talk about all things business related. And specifically, you know how people love to talk about, seeing people go from nothing to having all this massive success. But what happens in the middle, right? Like what happens during the ugly come up? Well, we are unapologetic and talking about that ugly come up. And so you will hear us talking to other entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs who are in the trenches doing the work and sharing their wisdom. Winston and I are sometimes by ourselves talking about things. And whatever we don't do on here on YouTube, especially with our guests or specifically with our guests, we always go into overtime. That can only be accessed if you are one of our community members on Patreon. So support us on Patreon. You can either do a $10, $30 or a $50 membership on Patreon. All of this is in the description box below, so you can do that. But that is what we do. So we have 25 minutes to answer the question. And then whatever we can't finish with our guests, we go into overtime. But when it's just us, you got us. So this is us today.
Yeah, man. And today is definitely going to be a good one. I'm incredibly excited about today. Guys, we did research for today's episode. It's not definitely just going to come off the cuff, but I think what we're going to, actually, I know what we're going to talk about today is something that a lot of you should be paying attention to as entrepreneurs, as people looking to potentially go out and start your own business. This is, today's topic is definitely going to be a good one. So without further ado, today's question is
network marketing recession proof? Is it recession proof though, right? This is a great question. I know I've heard people say this in the past. And I also had my doubts. I'm like, how do they know? How are they so certain? And like Winston said, we did our research on this. We have a lot of data that we have now collected that really does prove that it is true. It is true that network marketing is recession proof.
So before we dive right into it, because Janelle just gave you guys her, or just I guess a small snippet of what her thoughts are on it, we do want to address what that may look like. Many people, if you're following, again, many of us may not be big news watchers and all that, but if you're aware of what's obviously going on in the world, gas prices going up, or specifically, I guess in the US, gas prices going up, still going through, I would say, the post-pandemic trauma of people losing their jobs over the last 2 years. What you're being hearing is talk of a looming recession, or we've entered into essentially a recession. So just really quickly, what that actually means. So a recession is a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activities are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP in two success. And I forget the rest wasn't able to go into our, thank you. There we go. Thank you, Jenna. So what that looks like is, guys, companies have something that are called earning reports. They put them out quarterly. And if you are in the stock market or anything, and if you trade in the stock markets, that affects that market a lot more than you may be aware of. And it does affect your daily lives. But many people aren't even aware of things like this, that if Amazon or one of these big corporate companies, massive corporations, say they aren't doing so well, it affects how the country foresees the next quarter, or maybe 2 or 3 quarters, based on how poorly the company reports. And so across the board, it doesn't seem as if we are moving in the best trend. But the beauty of all of that, and that may sound crazy, is our industry of network marketing thrives during these periods of times. So Janelle started off by saying yes. So I'm going to let Jay jump in and throw what she's learned and just her personal thoughts on that. And then I'll share mine as well.
So if you're anyone like me, if you're between the ages of 35 to 45, then there are a couple of recessions that you're aware of in your lifetime, right? So there's the one that happened in 2008. right? So you have to think about like what was happening in your life in 2008. Where were you? Did you feel it, right? Did you feel a change in the economy? Did you feel like things were on a downturn, right? And then the one before that was probably in the 90s, but honestly, I can't remember. I think for us, we might have been too young to have really like identified the ones that happened before 2008. So I'll just start there with that and say that in 2008, I was just graduating from graduate school, and I landed a job working for a city hospital in New York City, and it was more than my salary had increased with the help of a graduate degree. But it wasn't substantial enough to live in New York City. So I'll be very honest with you guys. Before starting graduate school, I was making, I believe it was $34,000 working in a laboratory in New York City. You can't live off of that in New York City. Like you just can't. I really don't even know how I was able to manage that. And then I got a huge bump in my mind, right? Like, oh, holy cow, I'm now making $60,000, right? Like after graduate school. And even that, so there are several statistics that show that living in New York City, if you are not bringing in an income of 100,000, you're considered poor, essentially. Like you're living, you're not living the lifestyle that you
hand to mouth.
Yeah. So yeah, paycheck to paycheck, all that, right?
Real talk.
And this is all very, very real, right? And so certainly wasn't traveling, wasn't doing the things that like I wanted to do, all that stuff. And finally got a new job working somewhere else and was able to increase it, my salary from that next position. But I say all that to say, for me, I saw an increase in my salary. So when people ask like, where were you in 2008? Like, did you feel it? Honestly, I'm one of those people that didn't feel it. I knew it was going on, but I'm in the science industry, science and medicine. People always need medicine. Science, people are always doing research. Yeah. So like I didn't necessarily feel it like some other economies did. I understood that like the housing market fell, right? I did understand. Wait, okay, here's the story. So my ex-husband and I, we were married at the time, and we bought a house at the height of the bubble. So we bought a house, kind of like what people are doing now, right? Like, so if you bought a house maybe 6 months ago, let's say, right? And now people can't sell houses anymore. They just can't. The bidding wars are over. Things are slowing down. That was basically what happened to me. So this was my introduction to the bubble, or the recession. So we bought a house, and within 6 to 8 months after buying the house, so like mid 2007, the house was worth less than what we paid for it. What we bought it for. And things just went topsy-turvy. It's like really just upside down. We ended up selling the house. We had to do a short sale, so we didn't earn anything off the house. All these stories that people tell us about real estate, and how real estate is a great way to like for generational wealth and like creating an income and all this other stuff. I don't know what they were talking about, honestly, because like my experience with real estate was not that. It was the exact opposite. So so in terms of career path, I wasn't fired. I saw an increase in my salary. Like all of that happened. But in terms of the housing market, I definitely was impacted in that way. And so I felt it in that area. So for all the people, you have to think of where were you in the last recession? And people were just thinking, I need to save money or I need to make more money. So I made more money. So I had kind of like checked that off.
One of the boxes, yeah.
Yeah, but like if we were trying to sell our house, let's say that same year or whatever, like please, I would have been so upset. So upset because we would have totally lost. I mean, at least we broke even. We would have totally lost money on our investment. We wouldn't have been able to move on to a bigger or better house. Like none of that was our reality. And so I definitely felt stuck. I felt like we had made a poor investment decision. I felt like I couldn't move anywhere. Like we just had what we had. And that is a feeling I can relate to. And I can understand that if there are people who have, on top of that compound, have also lost their job and they're thinking about whether they can take out a loan on their home, right? Like a second mortgage or something like that. But now the cost of your home is less than, what you anticipated. All of these things now impact what are you able to do for your family? How are you to provide for your family. I know right now, definitely the cost of food and God knows everything else. I mean, we can talk about gas prices have all gone up. And so the question becomes during recession for the average person, Joe Schmo, or if your name is Janelle Villiers or Winston Broderick, the question now becomes, how do I
What do you do?
Save more money? Yeah. Or how do I make more money? That is essentially the mindset. And so when people start thinking about how can I make more money, we have said this time and time again, but network marketing is a way in which people can enter into a business without having to give up their life savings, and they can create an income stream. And this is what people turn to when they're asking two questions. How can I save money and how can I make money? People aren't looking for a boss to like give them all of a sudden a $5,000 raise, a $10,000 raise. Like, they're not. But if they can do it on their own, if they're going to work really hard, if they can fit it into the margin. And again, these are not people who are looking to make millions of dollars. And I'm sure there are some who do, but I'm talking about, like I said, Joe Schmo, who's just looking to bring in an extra $1,000. You know, like, what would that do for them? It would be a huge like sense of relief just to know that you're bringing in an extra 1,000 that you weren't bringing in before, you know, because God forbid in the recession, your job is like, sorry, we just can't afford you anymore. We got to, take your job away. Then at least, okay, well, I had this extra 1,000 coming in anyway. Maybe you were saving it or whatever you were doing with it. But then, okay, maybe now I have more time to go into like my side hustle, my network marketing company, to now create even more income than what I was doing before. But I do want to say it does take work. It does take effort. I really appreciated some of the people who were talking about this. So I do want to co-sign on that. Yeah. I'm not saying that this is an easy fix, but I'm saying it is much better to the alternative, which is trying to find a new job in an economy where people aren't offering new jobs.
And that's definitely, to me, the key part of this question. One, to what Janelle shared earlier, the recession before was the dot-com boom or bust that happened back in 2001. There was a little period of time before that. But then what made, or coupled with that burst, which essentially what happened was a lot of people were dumping money into the stock market. Again, similar to things you may see happening right now. I've never seen more people talking about trading and becoming day traders. There's a ton of network marketing companies and other businesses now that have popped up where people are learning how to trade stocks and things like that, which is great. So there's a huge influx of money that come into that. And then a lot of the people, and anybody out there fans of Billions, you know what I'm about to talk about. A lot of those stocks get shorted, and the money from the people who are doing this or driving this, they know this and they pull that money out. And the market fell 75%. You couple that with the 9/11 attack, which is what happened that essentially pushed us over. And why that's significant is we then had a huge amount of the government funding that you may have seen in the last couple recessions go to help support business, got shifted to war and got shifted to building planes, building whatever machine and artillery and all that stuff that needed to go to do that. And so that's what essentially forced, like Janelle mentioned, jobs, companies. I mean, the 9/11 attack in itself was a very, very tragic event. It affected a lot of businesses. There are a lot of businesses that had their corporate or main offices in that tower. So just as across the board, it was a really terrible, obviously, event. But one of the things for me that I guess maybe stands out in addition to that is what she's talking about, where essentially it's not like your boss has the extra money to give you what you need to adjust for cost of living. And we can just start there. Cost of living in itself is something that people find themselves dealing with on a normal basis. So if you can imagine what that looks like in a recession, where your price on gas is now, and I don't know what it is as of late, but we know in some instances gas price went up to $8.
Yeah.
Right? The average food across the board has increased 25%, which means you are not making more and you're not now making this up, but everything around you literally is costing you more. Everything around you. So that same employer doesn't have the funds when the parts, the things you need to run the business, all of a sudden now costs more. It's cutting into their bottom line. And usually unfortunately, where some business owners and some corporations go to find the extra money is to lay off people. And if it's a large enough amount of people being laid off, now, guys, couple this with the people who lost their jobs when businesses were forced to close during the pandemic and are still closed, some which will never come back. It essentially leads to why our industry in network marketing does so well. And Janelle said it so well. People were probably already in a financial bind. They were already 500 or one paycheck away from not being able to pay their bills. We looked at some numbers that said the average American is $62,000
in debt.
In debt. $62,000. They have a credit card that's a $6,000 debt. So you're looking at people who are already not thriving. They are already not doing well. And then the thing that they were counting on, not to anyone's fault, because we want to be very mindful here. We're not saying that companies are purposefully doing things. No, but a company's, I guess, goal essentially, if you're a publicly traded company, is to provide a profit to their stockholders. If you're a business that isn't in that space, you're trying to keep your door open, which may mean letting a Winston go. Janelle talked about where she was during the last recession before this one. I, as a former real estate broker, literally watched what she's describing happen. I also bought a home. Not in the period. Well, we bought ours with my younger sister, and I bought a home in 2009. So we were looking at what Janelle saw. Oh my God, these prices are amazing. Oh my goodness, they're so flexible with the amount of money you need to put down. This is awesome. Within months after purchasing our home, the bank sold our mortgage to someone else. This is a red flag for anyone out there looking to buy a home, because typically a bank would not want to do that if they believe that you're going to be able to pay off that mortgage. But because the person and the people who helped us get our home, again, numbers were finagled, they thought this is not a good investment for us to hold this. Let's pass this on to someone else. These are things that are going on right now. And to her point, it has slowed down, but it's sadly slowed down because the amount of money people had now, it's essentially gone. You usually see a huge influx of sales and the economy gets a little bit of a boom after people's taxes come back, because usually people go out now and spend their tax money and put it back into the market. But that's not what happened for a lot of people this year. Many people who got tax returns were paying off previous debts from the period of the pandemic where they were already falling and going underwater. So guys, you're seeing a lot of these things coupled. Now, to get to the question as to why our industry thrives, it's because, to the point Janelle made, no one fires you in our business. There's obviously compliance within every single company that's reputable, but no one is laying you off. In most instances where you are in most network marketing companies, there aren't income caps that says, Janelle, you can only make this much sale this month. And I can only maybe speak to some of the companies that she and I have taken part in. It is unlimited. The income potential in most network marketing companies allows for you to go out and keep making sales. If you're that person, you can continue making sales. You can create a team around you that just goes out and that's what they focus on. They thrive in this. And the biggest thing is, it is the mindset shift. It's people who are depending on something, and then because their job starts laying off people, the fear sets in that I may not be here, and they start to awaken to something that I want to say that we're a little bit more aware of now, which is one source of income. I'm not going to use the term job, but one source of income isn't enough. And maybe it's because we do live in New York. And so this is more of a reality to us. We don't live out in like rural somewhere where, rents are, I'll say.
No, because what happens is people are just getting paid less in those places.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was going to say that is like a doctor in a lower place, their income of $65,000 seems low compared to a doctor in New York, except who may be making six figures, except you don't realize that doctor who's making six figures has way more bills. Their house costs more, their car maybe, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally why someone may go to another state to buy a home, or why some people live in another state and commute into where they work, because it costs them less to do those things. And so what you if you're somebody, like we said in the beginning of the show, guys, looking to get into this industry, we've one of the things that I would say as to why this is something that you may want to add to your portfolio is you just never know. You never know what's going to happen with where you are working. And I say that again to say it is not always their fault. A lot of what's going on right now obviously isn't the individual person's fault, but we're living in a country, and I know we have people who watch internationally, but this is something that affects the world as a whole. I want to say, as the US is still one of the top countries in the world, where things are affecting here, it literally affects the chain in terms of the economy if this country takes a dip. I don't know if you guys study a lot of this, but when this country was in a depression, a lot of the world felt that because this was still a main source of trade. It still remains that, although China and other countries are on their rise as well. But this is, I mean, we can't even get into the Ray Dalio stuff where we talk about the New World Order. But my goodness, if you understand how what's about to happen and what we're essentially walking into now makes what you as a network marketer, this is the time for you to go out there and build this thing. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It absolutely is the thing that you need to go out there and do. Just in general, it doesn't hurt to have an additional source of income. Yeah, especially when it comes from other than a 9 to 5. And that's just at the end of the day. I mean, we can get into the fact that within our industry, you know, all the things we've talked about on other episodes, you know, you want to earn something when you're asleep, you know, God forbid you get sick one day. It'd be amazing to have a passive income that, you know, works while you're not working. We have tons of stories from people that we know of that's because of this industry was able to take time off to deal with some medical issues, even just having the finances to deal with a lot of the medical issues that they have. I mean, literally, Janelle's part of her why is something that happened in her family, which prompted her to step into this industry. I literally was in $750,000 worth of debt because my company closed during that the housing bubble that burst that Janelle talked about earlier. I went from earning a 6-figure income to watching in a matter of months my company losing a 50 building portfolio and the doors closing on something that I thought was where I was going to spend the rest of my adult life. And just like that. And obviously, to her point also, real estate in itself is a great industry to get into. But there are a lot of ways that you get into that industry or getting into real estate isn't as simple as they make it seem. I actually saw an ad recently where they were promoting FHA loans, which is a great way to get a home. But there's so many stipulations that you may not be aware of when you go out and buy that. And this idea of no money down, low, I saw one about a car recently, that if you're out there going out and purchasing cars with no money down, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. These are the things that pushes us as an average, I guess, again, American over where you're spending more money than you really think you have coming in. You know what I mean? And many of us, we aren't aware of that because we were taught to just go to school and get the job. And beyond that, I'll be honest, it depends on who you grew up around, your family, what you're taught. That's not enough. It's just not enough. There has to be more education around that. And I feel our industry provides some of that type of education.
That's a big part of it. It's because you don't know what you don't know, right? If everybody around you is doing this, they're just kind of getting by, and you know,
you're in the lunchroom talking about, you're just in the lunchroom talking about, oh man, these Subway prices are ridiculous, and it's like, what are we gonna do about that? Like, you know what I mean?
And so it's really, you know, I mean, even let's say you were to start your own like brick and mortar too. Like, let's say you did do that and you invested and you started your own brick and mortar business. Like, that's great. But still, who's teaching you how to run that brick and mortar? Like, who's teaching you things to identify and be aware of during a downturn economy when you're trying to run a business? Like, who's training you? Who's educating you? And that's one of the things that network marketing, if you're in the right network marketing company, they're going to provide that.
Absolutely.
They want to see you succeed. And, you know, like, yeah. So I just feel like this is something I think Winston's right in terms of the idea of like adding it to your portfolio. If nothing else, my goodness, we're gonna play a little bit of
I was about to say, yeah,
TED Talk from a woman. But one of the things that I came away with, and she's an accountant, so she helps people file their taxes. One of the things I thought was fascinating about what she talks about is that the average American loses about $5,000 towards taxes every year. And so let's say they're bringing in and like, and let's say they bring in, oh man, I'm going to say this incorrectly. And we'll put the
one was 50. If it was the husband and wife scenario? The one where she had remember the husband was 85,000, the wife was 55,000, and she said no. Oh, okay.
That's actually another great example. But my point is that people actually are living off of less than they make.
Yes.
Right. So like what you bring in, let's say you do make $60,000 after taxes, you're making $45,000, but like you're living as if you're making $50,000,
and you're not.
And so what is like the $5,000 that's going towards your taxes, you could actually reclaim some of that money if you had a business. And I loved how she talked about this, because that is one of the perks of adding this to your portfolio, is that you are actually, it is not only is it like important to do for your business, like as a business owner, but it's important for your family and for your own lifestyle, that you recognize that you need to add this to your portfolio so that way your family can survive. I'm not even talking about thriving. I'm just talking about surviving at this point. And that to me, oh man.
Well, no, that's good. Let's throw this up. And guys, if you guys are familiar, at the end of all episodes, there are like 2 video options that it usually gives you. We're going to make sure that the video that we're going to show you guys, just a quick clip of, you're going to be able to get the full TED Talk from this woman, Courtney Epps. I mean, again, just an amazing talk. And I'll share just a little bit she has here right now.
Well, today we're living in a world, in a country that 19.5 million people are without a job. I'm sure they didn't expect that in March of 2020, that they may lose their jobs. 40 million people were without a job. But see, here's what I know. The great thing is, as an accountant of 19 years, I get to see every industry. I get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what I see with home-based business owners is they are thriving. And they are not scared that they're going to lose their job today, or they're not going to be able to go to the office and work tomorrow. What I'm seeing is they are happy. They are making money because they've learned to use technology in order to grow a business. See, the world is rapidly changing. And here's the thing. We must find ways to adapt to that or go backwards. And that's not what any of us want. So I want you to understand there are 2 tax systems in our country. And this is why I'd say you'd be brain dead not to own a business. The 2 tax systems are, one, most people think it's the wealth system. Most people think it's you've got the wealthy and then you've got the poor. That's not correct. The first system was created and designed to steal wealth away, and that is the W-2 employee tax system. And you can knock it, you can get mad at me, but I want you to understand this is the way our economy works. The second system is the business owner tax system. And let me explain it to you so you understand. Business owners, we create economy. We're selling every day of our life. We are then turning around and putting money back into our business, which is good for the economy, which is also good for the IRS, which is also good for the government agencies. And then on top of that, we're hiring employees. And employees will always pay the lion's share of money, because if there is not enough money in taxes, if we have to pay all of our money in taxes, guess what? There are no employees. So that's the way the system works. And why do we as business owners get massive tax deductions? Because 70% of jobs are created by small to medium-sized businesses. And if we don't have the tax deductions that we need as business owners, then we can't make it, and we can't hire more and more and more employees to help them get off of unemployment. See, here's what I want you.
All right, so we're gonna right there. So you guys definitely leave that so that you guys go look for that. And again, we'll have that queued up for you guys at the end of today's episode. So please look out for that when you rewatch this and share this with other people. But and I know we're out of time, but so much of what she said was so impactful to me, where she broke down the 2 systems that we are again under. And I've never heard anyone explain it like that. where you're being taught that having a W-2 is wealth, it's the way to get wealthy in this country, and it is not. And there's like this idea of a 99% and a 1%. And what we're not realizing that these 1%, these are people who are helping because they are the ones that are creating the jobs that produce for the 99%. And you want to move yourself into that. I mean, if you're in this and you've seen The Quadratic, you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you haven't, definitely go get that book where he talks about getting over from that side to the opposite side and what that means. And so I love what Courtney said in that video. Again, please look up for the rest of that and go watch that to educate yourself on what she's talking about. If you're not in our industry already, if you are someone on here, you're watching the replay, and you're like, I have considered that before. Hey, my job is talking about maybe cutting back hours, whatever the case is, and I was looking for something. She doesn't even specifically say network marketing. She goes as a very broad sense as to home-based business, because there are a ton of home-based businesses that have nothing to do with network marketing or multi-level marketing that you should be looking to consider. And we are here for the entrepreneurs. We're here at Say That Channel for entrepreneurs. If you're somebody who realizes that what you grew up in, the system, is just not what we were taught, and I'll be honest, I was never taught about two wealth systems. No, and I have an economics. I'm an economics major from from a school, and never was I taught any of that in school.
They because school is created to make employees.
Yeah. Sorry to let y'all know that.
Yeah. All right. So if you got value out of today, please put a V in the comments, a fire emoji. Let us know. We would love to continue the discussion with you in the comments. So go ahead and put more comments in. We love interacting with you guys. We'll read your comments. Become a Patreon community member of ours. We'll probably start a discussion there with our community members. So definitely do that. Again, that's in the description box below. And other than that, we will see you next Wednesday.
Next week. Yes, guys. Big people coming. Big stuff happening. Make sure you're tuning in. Lock that subscribe button, guys. Make sure you are notified about what we have coming up. You do not want to miss an episode. And
as
always,
remember, you deserve the good life.
Say that, guys. Have an amazing week and a great Wednesday.